Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we're going to look at one of my favorite films of all time. So this is A League of Their Own. It stars Tom Hanks, Geena Davis, and as much as we want to have Madonna on here, she's not starring in this film. She is a side character. The other major character is actress is Lori Petty. And then along with Madonna, Rosie O'Donnell. It's been a while. Rosie O'Donnell, Megan Cavanagh, and several others, including Ann Cusack, who's older. Other siblings are a little bit more popular, and of course Tom Hanks. And interesting. This is historical fiction, so if you're not familiar with the film, it tells the story, at least. It uses the All-American Girls Baseball League as a backdrop to a story of two sisters. So it is a historical fiction, with the exception of the league itself, which yes, does exist, and the fact that they have a big thing in the Cooperstown, the Baseball Hall of Fame. Besides the Hall of Fame, it's also a museum. So they have a permanent exhibit there, which is part of this film. That is real. The fact that these women wore the uniforms are accurate. The fact that they had chaperones and they were strictly monitored and had to behave ladylike was also very accurate to the actual history of it. So those things are accurate. Most of the story, of course, is not. Tom Hanks' character does not exist. None of these characters are actually real. In fact, they even substitute. They create an entirely fictional person who sets it up. It was actually set up by the bubblegum person, Wrigley. So he was the one who set everything up. This was his idea. So everything else is completely fictional. The names of the teams are accurate, but the last two teams in their first World Series is not. So it was the Racine, which was, and I can't remember who actually was the opposite team. It was not the Rockford Peaches. The Rockford Peaches were in fact a team. They were not, however, in that World Series that year. I believe they were in there at one point in time. And all the characters are completely fiction. But the League is very much a backdrop to this story of two sisters. You have Dottie and her sister Kit. Now, Dottie is married. Her husband's been sent off to war. She's beautiful. She's intelligent. She's a very good baseball player. And then you have a younger sister, Kit, who's not as pretty, who's single, a bit younger. She's also a very good baseball player. She's a great pitcher. And that's her big thing. She's a very, very good pitcher. But she's very much overshadowed by her sister, Dottie. So you see the back and forth between these sisters as Kit tries to form her own identity throughout the film, while competing essentially with Dottie, who's again older, more mature, trying to look out for her little sister while her little sister is still trying to grow up. Now these women, I think they're in their 20s. They're in their 20s. They grow up in rural Oregon. They come out to the Midwest. So they're around, I think, the Chicago area. And they're kind of exposed to a completely different world. And they're playing baseball. They're interacting with a lot of different people. And it's very much a back and forth between the two of them as, again, Kit tries to grow up. And Dottie tries to look out for her, as well as dealing with her own issues. Again, she misses her husband. She's kind of having a flirtation with Tom Hanks' character, who's the manager, who's an alcoholic. He's an alcoholic. He destroyed his career through drinking. And he's kind of attracted to Dottie, but again, she's married and her husband's off at war. From what I've told from the background, I absolutely love the director of this. The type of films she makes are amazing. She's since passed. This is a Penny Marshall film. But apparently the producers wanted a love story between Tom Hanks and between the two characters and Geena Davis, which never actually ended up in the movie. Apparently I was watching some of the back stuff. They do have a deleted scene where he kisses her and it becomes awkward. But that doesn't actually make it into the movie. And they wanted her to basically save him from alcoholism. I believe Penny Marshall put in, it says like, she gives him a Coke instead of alcohol. And that's pretty much the extent of it. She's like, I'm not going to do that. She's married. So we're not going to, it wasn't the time, really. Particularly since you see it doesn't fit the character, in my opinion. I think Penny Marshall agreed. It's like, it doesn't fit the straight-laced character of Dottie. She's the adult of the team very much. She's their leader. She's the one who's kind of looking out for them, despite the fact that, as opposed to the opposite, and very much Madonna and Rosie O'Donnell play almost the exact opposite. Madonna's a dancer. She's very, very wild. It's very much clear that she's playing herself. In this case of Madonna, it's like she's not a virgin. She's a wild child. The actress was apparently making everybody miserable, being on a baseball film. Don't know why she chose to do this. Is 92. Her career was fine. She didn't need this. But our character is very, very interesting, of May, who's very promiscuous. They poison their chaperone to go to this bar. They almost get caught if it's not for Dottie. Marla, who's one of the other side characters, who's very ugly and a very, very good ball player, but she falls in love during that scene, which is also kind of interesting. You see Marla get married, which is kind of funny, and then you don't see her again. As far as I can remember for the rest of the film, you don't see her again. And I'll go back into that. There's actually, I was watching some of the deleted scenes. There's a little bit of background in there that you get cut out that Penny Marshall had to put on the cutting room floor. She wasn't, from what I get from the special features from this specific disc, she wasn't particularly happy about cutting this specific part because it messes something up when it comes to the film. But again, that's what the film is very much focuses on, these two sisters. And what is eventually happening is Dottie asks to be traded. She asks their manager to trade her. And of course, they're not going to do it. They trade Kit. They send Kit to the Racine team, which of course infuriates her. It's like, they're not going to trade you. They're not going to take you out of here. You're pretty much you're the poster girl for this. You're beautiful. You're smart. You're a great ball player. They're not going to trade you. So they trade Kit. And of course, she's mad. She's been sent to a different team. Though in some ways that's good. And shortly thereafter, Kit's husband, Dottie's husband, shows up. He's been injured in the war, but he's home, and she decides to leave. So she's like, you know what, my husband's home. We're leaving. I'm gonna go back to Oregon with my husband. But they turn around and she comes back. So, and you have the final game where it's a face-off between Dottie, who's actually, when she's not batting, she's actually the catcher. That's her job. And that's, again, you have the back and forth between the two sisters. You have Kit, who's the batter, and then her sister, Dottie, who's the catcher, who's essentially telling her what to do. Or that's like, again, she's telling her pitcher what pitches to throw. So again, you have that interesting back and forth dynamic. So again, it's the big final game. And Dottie decides to tell their pitcher, because Kit is up to bat, it's like, you want to catch her. She likes high, fast ones. She can't hit them. Only she does. And she wins by hitting a home run. Wins the series for the Racine team, which is what she's on. And kind of, she proves herself, in a sense. So it's like this film is very much about Kit and her growing up, and it ends her and her sister kind of forgive each other at the very end, but Kit decides to stay. She decides to stay in Chicago. It's like her sister's like, "Are you coming home?" And she's like, "No, I'm gonna stay here and get a job with some of the other girls." And because there's nothing for her back in Oregon. There's nothing there. She's like, "You go home. Go home to your husband." It's like, "Are you coming back?" Really? She's like, "No, we want children." So, and then it switches. Now, initially there was a framing device to this film, where at the very beginning you have Dottie as an adult, old woman. I believe her husband's dead. He passed a few years before or something. I think it seems like she's living with her daughter, and her daughter has 2 sons. I don't know if her daughter is a single mother or not, but her daughter's forcing her to go to this reunion where they're inaugurating this portion of the museum in Cooperstown. So, and for some reason she's taking a bus. This is I think the 80s, when they inaugurate this. But she goes, and when you have the end of the film, she's looking around. There are a bunch of older women. A lot of them were actually of the original league playing baseball. And she interacts with May and Doris, who throw a baseball at her, which is something that happened at the beginning of the film. And it's like, they're happy to see her. She only played 1 season. Like, there was people in the stands like, "Who is that?" It's like, "It's Dottie Henson." It's like, "I don't remember her. She only played 1 season. She was the best player in the league." So, and it ends with her and Kit reuniting. So she mentions in the beginning of the film, it's like, Kit's not going to be there. She's going to be off wandering around with that husband of hers, which kind of implies that Kit got married and was doing a lot of world traveling. And it ends with them hugging and seeing that Kit had like tons of she apparently loved her husband because they have lots and lots of redheaded grandchildren everywhere, and Kit's literally there, like surrounded by her family. So it's kind of unusual that Dottie is there by herself without her daughter doesn't come with her, or her grandsons. So, but again, it's a happy family film. It's very good historical fiction. It is one of my favorites. As being a younger sister myself, I relate to Kit's character. My sister was older and wiser and in many ways more competent than I was, even in her 20s. She also, again, got married, though long before I did. So we had a similar dynamic. So I really related to that, even when I was young, when I saw this, because me and my sister had a very, very similar dynamic. We loved each other, still do, but we have that similar back and forth where, as the younger sister, you're always trying to both stand up and be your own person, but also prove yourself to your big sister. So that is very much the character dynamic you have. And it's very well done. I love this film. I love the sister dynamic. I love the history of the baseball. Cooperstown is on our list to visit with our kids. My husband was there when he was like 8. He's a huge baseball person. Absolutely huge baseball person. So it's a fun film to watch. It's definitely a family film. Not too young. There's some choice things going on in this film, including a church scene where the priest drops his Bible most of the time when May is in there. So, yeah. And Madonna is being Madonna. Her character very much fits being very promiscuous. It's tongue-in-cheek, but it's there. There's also an early scene where Tom Hanks is, he's an alcoholic. He comes in half drunk. Doesn't really pay attention to the girls, goes to the bathroom and pees for a couple of minutes. But you also see him drinking. Now, there is a deleted scene that I'm going to bring up that it changes, when I watched it, it changes the film a little bit. So, this comes happening. Dottie hasn't left yet. So, right basically before her husband shows up, she's on the phone and she's waiting to hear something. And she kind of relaxes to an extent afterwards, but she goes to her room and starts crying. and you don't, it's connected to Kit leaving. You don't quite know what's going on. Now in the cut scene, what happens is Dottie's on the field. She's basically, Kit's on the other team. They're playing the Racine team. This is during the World Series. Marla has come back, and she's on the Racine team now for some reason to help make extra money, but she's pregnant, and the league doesn't know, because the league would kick her off. So, because she's since gotten married, and they need extra money. And basically, Kit is telling Dottie, and I think, what's the other character that they're talking to? Pretty sure, yeah, it's the actress is Biddy Schram. The character's name is Evelyn. She's the one with, if you're familiar with this character, the one with her son shows up and is like making fun of things, and I think gets hit by a baseball one time. So basically, both Evelyn and Dottie are told, like, if she's on the field, be careful, because I think she plays second base. And they put Marla on when Dottie is arguing with her manager, Tom Hanks, who's who plays Jimmy Dugan, who's their manager. And she doesn't see Evelyn signaling to her that Marla is on. This is when Dottie is on second base. She's on first base. And the ball flies, and she slides and runs into Marla, and Marla flips over, and everybody gets mad at her because she didn't realize it. And basically they tell her, it's like, Marla has to be taken off on a stretcher, and everybody's pissed off at her because it's like, it's just a game. And in a previous cut scene, Jimmy Dugan would tell her, basically trying to convince her to admit that it's not just a game to her. So what's going on in that scene where she's on the phone, she's finding out what happened to Marla, and that Marla and the baby are okay. So that's what really happened. And Penny Marshall in the cut scenes admits that she didn't really want to cut that scene out, because then it doesn't exactly make sense. So it does change the film just a little bit. So because you find out what really happened with Marla, because otherwise in the final cut of the film, Marla leaves with her husband when she gets married, just says she'll be back next season. So how on earth she got back into the league and put on a different team when they already had the team set up, unless somebody else left and they had an open spot? A little weird. But you also don't ever find out who was switched with Kit and who came onto their team. But again, it's a little bit different. Again, I love this film. So this is definitely a good family film. Age range, I don't know how old I was when I saw this, nor is that relevant. I saw Spaceballs at age 6. Don't do that. Don't go there. Do not see Spaceballs with small children. Far too many swear words in that film. But I'm going to guess age range just can interest, just because, again, there are some of that suggestive issues with Madonna's character, because, of course, it's Madonna. And interesting concepts, and, of course, a drunken manager. Middle school. I'm going to say middle school for maturity levels. This is rated, I'm pretty sure this is PG, but again, this was the 90s. So, parental guidance. Again, there's nothing overt, but it's very much implied with Madonna's character, because, Madonna plays Madonna no matter what most of the time. She may have done something in Evita. I've seen pieces of that. I may cover it one day. We'll see. But again, fantastic film. Again, it's historical fiction. It's a good way if you're looking into the history of baseball, women's baseball, what women were doing during World War II. And it's a good kind of fictional thing to tie into looking at that history. Because, of course, the history of the All-American Girls Baseball League, which is what I believe the final name was, they went through a variety of names, is very, very interesting. And if you're a family who's traveling and you're going to Cooperstown, this is another good film to watch because, one, it does show some of it. It shows them opening it up and seeing this huge exhibit of these and honoring these women. The other thing that is true is the song that they sing. So the song they sing about the League is in fact factual. That is a real song. That was a song of the League. So it's a good thing to watch if you're going to Cooperstown or you're looking at this history. It's the All-American Girls Baseball League was also, again, vital to these women were doing their part in the war. They sold war bonds and all sorts of things, and they kept people entertained. And one of the reasons I've talked to my husband about this a little bit is that this lasted into the 50s, and what took it down was radio and television. So once people are able to watch like Major League Baseball games on TV or even listen to it on the radio, smaller leagues like this, the women's baseball leagues and a lot of the minor league teams, which were more open and more widespread so people could actually see baseball, otherwise they weren't really seeing anything. They weren't able to actually see baseball or even really hear about it much unless they had a local team. So they would watch these local teams. And that was the same with the girls' baseball, is you were able to, this was the only time you could actually see baseball of any professional caliber played. So once the radio and the television took over and people could actually see it, a lot of the minor stuff, the minor leagues, the women's baseball league, basically fell out of favor. It became no longer viable. I believe there is some professional women's softball league, but again, it's not very popular. So it's good to look at that history. My husband also got into this. We watched another movie about the Black Sox scandal, 8 Men Out, which was about the betting. And at the very end of that, you see Shoeless Joe Jackson playing under an assumed name at some farm league. And that was possible because people wouldn't have seen him. People didn't know what he looked like because radio, television didn't exist really back then. So they could disappear and play in these tiny little farm leagues without anybody knowing, and nobody would know what they looked like. So, again, that's the end of this video. Great film. Good history to look into. I'm married to a baseball person. My father was a baseball person. My husband's very much into the statistics and the history, so we talk about that. It's very, very interesting. It's very, very interesting. This film there ties into it. If you have mothers and daughters and sisters and things, it's another good film. Again, I relate to it because I had a similar sister dynamic. So, and it does show at the end, those sisters do. It's like we've grown up, we miss each other, we love each other. And this was a part of our lives. And this baseball was very much a wonderful part of our lives. So that's one of the other reasons I love this film, is it's very, very fun. So that is really it for this review. If you like what you see, be sure to check out the rest of the channel. I cover some of these older films. I do a lot of books. I do some travel stuff. I do some more secular homeschooling stuff. My kid's young, so we're getting there. It's coming. It's in the pipeline. But again, she's really, really young. This is being filmed in February of 2020, so you guys will see it this fall. So by that time, she'll be just a little over 3. So we're just going to start getting into that around the time you guys see this. So I will, as things come up, I'll add to it. So be sure to like and subscribe. Check out what I've already got. Look forward to more, and leave a positive comment if you have one. Thank you.